Wayfeather Media presents Clairvoyaging. Hey. Hi, Frank.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going.
You just went camping
I went
alone.
clairvoyaging.
You did.
And you know what happened while I was there?
Tell me.
Not a lot. Because I'm practicing. And
Practicing.
Yeah. And I'm not quite there yet.
Were you trying to, see dead people?
I was trying to interface with my spirit guides or any spirits that are attached to me.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You ended up just in our trailer, in the rain.
Yeah. I ended up listening to podcasts and just chilling out, which, it could be worse than that.
That's nice.
Yeah.
A nice little hike here and there.
Just one.
Okay.
I'm a lazy boy.
This is very productive, this camping trip.
Yeah.
So what do we have today?
Today, part 2, Reverend William Meyer.
Yeah.
Part 1 was super sweet. Such a cool guy.
Yeah. He's awesome.
He's a great dude. We're going to be talking a little bit more about past lives, angels, free will, the intersection between free will and, what our contract is while we're on Earth here.
Yeah. A little bit of grief.
Little grief in there.
Grief chat.
It's good.
Yeah, it is good. We hope you enjoy part 2 of William Meyer.
Can you just ask me if I can go get a coffee? Ask me if I want to get a coffee with you.
Hey, Frank, you want to go get a coffee and a bagel later?
Yeah.
It's sort of like a Long Island Brooklynese.
Brooklynese.
It's funny because I moved to Raleigh and I started to incorporate some of the Southern dialects. I started saying y'all and everything.
Oh,
but
yeah.
when I'm passionate and heated in a moment, I'll start to break out in full Long Island accents. It's so funny.
And by all means, that is a tool at your disposal. People will take you more seriously. That's amazing.
The city guy.
Yeah. Had to cross that off my list. I got asked for a coffee in Long Island. You had mentioned past life remembrances or remembrance. Does everyone have past lives? Is that something only you are privy to since you're more aware of your abilities, or how does it work?
The last thing that I would want to do is say that you can't do something.
Sure.
So everyone has
William.
all of these gifts at their disposal. It's just a matter of whether they're open to them or not. So it's picture you're in a room, you're in a circular room, and this room is infinitely big, but somehow there's an infinite amount of doors that you can walk through and open up. And each one of those doors is a gift. And there are different subsections, sub-gifts. It's one of the main ones might be past life remembrances. One of the main ones might be healing modalities. Everyone has the ability, if they're contracted to and open to that, to remember their past lives. That being said, there are people living here for the very first physical life as a human, where they haven't had past lives before. They might have had other experiences because it's a progression, right? You incarnating as a human necessarily isn't the very first soul experience that you have. That's kind of a few rungs up the ladder.
Did they start as a tadpole or?
Yeah, like a little spiritual tadpole, right?
Okay.
kind of just floating in the ethers, figuring out, what's going on. And so, but anyway, so if you are someone that has had experience, has had past life experiences, and there's nothing blocking you from accessing that, then yes, you can develop the ability. And I'm going to say that's most people. What I believe, and just from what I'm feeling right now, the people that are contracted to not be open to spiritual gifts and things, I'm going to say there's a 99.999% chance if you're listening to this episode, then you are open because there's something about this that interests you. So I just wanted to say that because I don't want someone to listen to this and think I must be one of the people that isn't going
one of the tadpoles
isn't able to listen or to expand on my gifts. You probably are open to this if you're listening. It's just, you have to go through that process of learning and remembering and working through, okay, what are my gifts? What does it feel like. But your past life remembrances, if that's something that you would want to dive into, can come in any number of ways. There are, if you're really new to it, the past life guided meditations on YouTube is kind of where I started. But that also, like, these remembrances can't be forced, just like with any spiritual gift that you're trying to work on, because forcing it is kind of like inputting your own human mind, your own human experience into this very spiritual gift that needs to flow in from the other realms. So if you're like trying to sit there and like, oh, I really, really, really want to work on this, like you're sitting there and like a vein is bursting on your forehead, like, oh, well, I need to do this, then it's like you're gripping on it too much. You really need to just relax your grip, let it flow. When it's meant to happen, it will happen.
Is that good advice for other things other than past life remembrance, like meditation, or like you just got to let go a little bit? Because sometimes I find myself straining when I meditate, and I know that's the opposite of good.
Like eyes are really tight and like
yeah,
getting
specifically
a headache.
when I used to practice astral projection more or try to get to it, there was a certain amount of strain to it, maybe because I wasn't as good at it, but it would work on occasion. Now it's been like 20 years since I was practicing that stuff. I suck at it again, and I find myself like, oh, I kind of have a purpose for following that. But I find myself in a meditative state, just straining and trying too hard for it, as opposed to I'm probably just out of practice.
Well, you know what, Frank? You a phrase that I heard you say is "I suck at it." Well,
yeah,
and
you might hear me say that a lot.
Well, what is that doing though? When you're trying to, it's like you're incorporating a false belief because you don't suck at it. You're good at it. You've done it before. There's just a wall that you need to work past with the fear, which is. People tend to experience that sometimes with these gifts. It's like me at a child. I pushed it out because I was fearful of what I felt around me. And after having all these experiences, and like the walls that are strongest to break through are the walls that we build up through fear and through these experiences. So the language that we tell ourselves either builds or breaks down the walls. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, so much of my humor is based on self-deprecation that I need to take that to heart.
I've been saying it for like months now.
I
know it's funny, but sometimes you're repeating like the self-limiting.
I should also say that like when I say something like I suck, I'm saying I currently suck. I will not suck forever.
Yeah. But you're saying it out loud and telling the universe and telling your body and yourself and your brain that like.
So
I got to pull it together.
Here's one thing that maybe can help understand what that process is like, because we're creators. We create our own reality. So you have two buckets in front of you. One bucket has all great things that you say to yourself, and the other bucket has things that don't really feel good. And what are you saying when I don't suck? You're looking more at the bucket that has negative things. You're using the word like the negative word, whereas you're putting more energy and more will and more intent into that, even though, you know, you're trying to like make it seem the opposite. Like I'm not this, but the more powerful thing, and, you know, listeners, I guess, use this with your own languages and what you're going through. But like, instead of saying, I don't suck, about like astral, like if you're working on astral projection, like I don't suck about this, or I won't suck in the future, or something like that. Like I'm open to being good at it. I am working on this. Right.
Yeah.
I gotta find a new brand.
You can still make fun of yourself in a, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe it will become very unfunny.
I'll figure. I'm concerned about it not being funny.
I don't offer comedy advice.
See, I said we needed a different podcast. This isn't going to work. I'm just trying to get funnier.
Oh my gosh.
Assuming past life remembrance is a gift and you've been given and achieved access to it for a purpose, how has that enabled you with your work and your practice?
Most of my past life experiences open me up to additional gifts that I have used in previous lives. So, for example, when I spoke about the healing that I was doing to some family members this year, I was doing things that I was never really taught in this life, but it was just funneling in from these past life remembrances, because I'm in the space, like I'm I'm familiar enough with all these past life experiences. Like when I'm in the healing space, it has a signature, like an energy feel, like, okay, I remember this. And then like that kind of triggers these memories to come up. So for me, it's a very much opening me up to all these different remembrances. Like going back to the visual of like all the stepping stones in front of you in the field, like it doesn't have to be past life remembrances are like a smaller stepping stone that can lead you to smaller stepping stones from there on out. But it's just something that kind of leads you to remembrances of kind of whatever you need to be aware of. So the other thing that I wanted to pin along with your intuition is don't try, like it goes back to what you were saying, Frank, about forcing and straining to do these very spiritual, free-flowing gifts and utilizing them. Is if you're straining for something, if you're starting to do that, then your human mind, the physical body is like becoming intertwined with what needs to come through. And it's almost blocking the full flow of it, because our human mind doesn't have the access to the all knowledge of all of creation, right? Our human mind, the best way to go through our spiritual journey is to give it up to spirit of light and love. So that's also very important to be specific. Like angels, for example, angels are always light and love. Archangels, Archangel Michael, anyone can call on Archangel Michael, even someone that is new to spirituality, because Archangel Michael offers his help for anyone in the world that wants the assistance of spirit of light and love. So even if you've never worked with spirit before, you could even say, Archangel Michael, thank you for helping me in this scenario in my life. And what Archangel Michael will do is he has the rotary index of every being that can help with all these different situations. And he's going to give a phone call to these couple angels that can help. And he's going to say, hey, guys, come over here. They need help. So he's kind of like the great operator of the spiritual world.
Michael's Rolodex.
Yeah.
And it's not just Archangel Michael. Your spirit guides are also based in light and love. They're almost like your friends, your team on the other side that wants to help you in your journey. Everyone has spirit guides. Everyone has a spirit team helping them. We don't go into a human experience with just us and ourselves, and that's it. And we're the only ones that we know, and we're alone in the pool. We might feel like we're alone sometimes. Like I've read a story about someone who like never had any friends or family, or they just felt very separated and isolated from everyone around them. Well, that's because they chose to not incarnate with spirits and souls that they already knew. Like, for example, I'm very close with my mom and my sister and all my family pretty much. And I know that kind of closeness doesn't come from just one lifetime. That closeness is developed over many, many experiences, and even time being close together on the other side. So even though you might feel like you're alone and isolated in this life, like you don't have anyone around you, you're living by yourself, you can still call on your spirit team, spirits of light and love, because they are always there for you. If you are meant to work through something, and most of the times you are, they can help you through that. And the best way of asking for that help is for my best and highest good, because you don't want to also limit yourself when you ask for help. You don't want to limit the hands of spirit that needs to work in your life to help you with that goal, right? So the example that I like to use is if you need some sort of transportation, because in the United States, you basically need a car to go anywhere. So if you don't have a lot of money, and that's another thing I could talk on, but if you need a car to get somewhere and you don't have a lot of money, and maybe you have a bicycle right now, it's okay. How are you going to ask for help? You're not going to ask spirit, please, I would love a brand new Ford F-150, because how's that going to work out for you? Most likely that's probably not going to happen. It's going to be very difficult for spirit to work that goal for you, because it's a very, very small box, right? Does that make sense? What the end goal is. So if you just say, okay, you know you need transportation, spirit, thank you for helping me to get where I need to go with grace, ease, and joy. something like that. You're not even limiting it to a vehicle. You're saying, I just need to get to where I go, because that's your ultimate goal, right? It doesn't matter if you're driving a brand new car, a 99 Camry, you just need to get to places.
That's cool too, because it kind of makes you focus on the, like you said, the goal, like the actual core goal, and not the steps to the goal. And then also, like you said, especially with like straining and trying too hard, that requires a little bit of submission to the path not being something exactly that you envisioned it to be. And you have to have, you have to have faith. And faith is a little bit of a word that I don't use. But not saying that it's not a good thing to have. But I think that that word in particular has been bastardized.
I definitely agree. I would say that for anyone that has some hesitancy, the only thing that you need to work past is this one wall. And this wall is understanding and recognizing that you, the human self, don't have an all-knowingness, right? That's the one big wall, because when you accept that, you then can accept, okay, if I don't know everything, then surely someone does out there. Well, who does know that? Spirit of light and love, the core spiritual essence that already did all the learning and growing. So why don't I just release my human mind, my human thoughts, feelings, and emotions from whatever I'm trying to work through, and give it up to whatever spirit for the highest good wants to help. And that's a good way of phrasing, like I said before, for the highest and best good.
That's the sound clip right there.
That's the one. That's the one.
No, that's great.
Are our spirit guides typically like, they have just been like around, they used to be human, and now they're like, sure, I'll be a spirit guide now. And they like sign a contract with you to like, protect you and love you unconditionally and all that. But like maybe 100 years ago, they were a human.
Mm-hmm. I'd say most of the time it's more than 100 years ago. We're talking usually in the terms of thousands of years ago, the last life that they lived. But it also could be an ancestor that you've known in this life. For example, my Nana just passed away a few months ago, and she's on my spiritual team. So these ancestors,
nice.
Yeah. So, but most of the time, these spirit guides, specifically the quote unquote human people that have lived human experiences, it's not limited to just people that have lived as humans here. You could have many different beings on your spiritual team. But specifically with the people that have lived human experiences are more likely than not, more often than not, they are people that you've incarnated with in these lifetimes as student teacher roles. So for example, like one of my spirit guides is an older teacher that I've incarnated with in like times of being a monk and like this and that. And that's someone on my spiritual team. Like they've lived the human experience. They can kind of guide me on my experience. But at the end of the day, I'm the captain of my ship. Anyone in the world can just guide you. They can't tell you explicitly what to do, because you're the one who decides your own journey,
Right. Yeah.
You kind of take bits and pieces from what all the intuition, from what everyone says, what all your teachers are kind of guiding you towards. You feel what resonates and what works for you.
This is so interesting because it's making me feel like there's a quite the dance between like contractual destiny and also making your own choices, your own what's the word for that?
Free will.
Sure. Yeah, free will. I mean, that's kind of that's a difficult concept to kind of understand because they seem at odds, but the way you're explaining it, they're not. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, free will is one of the highest laws that all beings have. No one can go against your free will. So that's kind of what I'm saying when it loops into your own journey. You have your own free will on how you live your journey. So that being said, part of you choosing what your journey is choosing what limitations to have, what contracts to have in a life. So you're choosing all of that. No one's giving them to you. You're sitting down in a room on the other side with all the beings that you're making these contracts with. It's almost like you're at a super long business table, conference room, whatever. And there are all these angels, all your spirit guides around you, and you're working through all your contracts. You are the CEO of your own life that ultimately decides what contracts you have. so for people that have those spiritual limitations and are contracted to not be open to that in the entirety of this life, they chose that. They chose to do that. That's not something that was placed upon them. You have to choose everything that happens to you, which.
So, sorry, I
Yeah,
feel
go
like the
ahead.
question would be so, I don't know. I feel like it's a burning question that people would wonder is like, why would you choose, a life of like insane grief, or, something where someone like loses their child, or they're in, whatever, like why would someone have that contract?
So I'm going to answer that by saying the experiences and the feelings, and especially the more, I'm going to say negatively oriented, like the sadness and the grief and the physical pain, all of that stuff is not who we are. Does that make sense? We don't carry that when we leave. People that have had near-death experiences, like someone that's in a car crash and they're revived, they say that I was in a car crash and all the pain left me immediately. They felt no pain when they went and visited Jesus or light or whatever. So that leaves us. So that's not who we are. So again, relating it back to the concept of this is a school, in the classroom, you might need to do things to learn something that you might not necessarily do on the like outside of a school, like the workshops and all the different things that you do in college, in grade school, all this and that are within the walls of the school. All the teachers, all the exercises that you go through, you generally, for this analogy, you don't do that outside of a school. So you go to the school for 9 to 5, whatever it is, you do those experiences, but that's not who you are. You're just doing them temporarily to learn a goal. And then at the end of the day, you leave, you go home, you have a great time. You know that, oh my God, I've learned things, even though kind of relating it to these very difficult and challenging experiences like the loss of a loved one, disease and everything like that. It's a little hard for us to grasp sometimes, but that's really the nature of it. Is those are tools for learning that even though are incredibly, incredibly difficult while we're here, and I've experienced too, and they're earth shattering, even though you might know what the nature is, that doesn't prevent you from going through these things. But
okay, so it's something like your soul needed to learn in order to like the next lifetime, your next life, have some other like understanding or lesson that you teach to others or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say someone died young, like that's never awesome to deal with, and it's not awesome for them, the person that passed. Like, is that just part of do accidents happen?
Yeah.
I mean, if we all have free will, I'm sure we can like kind of whoopsie here.
Yeah,
fall off a
like
cliff.
like there are kind of like think about it as like a court system, right? If you break the law, you're going to have consequences. If you go against someone's free will, you have to make up for that in some way. You know, these are all universal laws, so it's very like these are the core. It's like you're opening up the engine hood, like the hood of a car, and looking at all of the different things that make the universe function. But yeah, of course I guess there are accidents that happen that are completely out of the blue. I would say that if you are really if you need to go through things and everything is lining up in your life for you to like have this experience when you're 60 years old, you're more likely than not, you're not going to have an accident that kills you at 25, because this thing is so crucial to your development that, for example, you probably hear about stories about people that didn't go into work on 9/11. Like for some reason or another, they caught the train 5 minutes late, or they just felt sick that day. There are so many number of reasons where if you're contracted to do things and like your soul wants to do this, your soul doesn't want to end the human life early, then things are going to work out in such a way.
But also, also if you think about it, like if the emotion and stuff of grief, because you're asking about grief specifically, Lauren.
Well, yeah, like, that was one of the things. Like people have, incredibly difficult lives that are like.
But it also makes me wonder, like, whose life at some point isn't incredibly difficult? Like grief isn't that complicated a feeling. It is grief, I mean, it is complicated,
Yeah.
but like everyone experiences it. It's not so unique that one person experiences grief. It seems like something that it's just part of the game.
Yeah.
I just meant like, I'm not the psychic.
I meant like grief or war or loss or poverty or like whatever it is, all the things that are so challenging. Some people have like, some people are like, oh, they seemingly have like a charmed life. Why are these other people like, why do they have it so hard? Why is it always such a hard lesson or whatever? But that, that kind of helps explain it at least.
The thing to remember too is we are all equal. There's not anyone that is above or lesser than the other when you look at who like their essence, their soul and their spiritual essence is. Everyone is going through this process of learning and growing, even though like you think about Jeff Bezos, right? He has millions, more money than small countries. Like he must be having a great life, right? But he also might be going through things that, I mean, you think about all the people around him are, maybe they're only friends with him because of his money. And what is that teaching him? That's teaching him, the value of emotional connections and the value of not needing money, because money is a thing that we created as humans to serve a purpose that we believe is good. Whereas you don't need money to be happy. A person can be homeless and be happy as a clam. It's just dependent on your perspective, your mindset. That being said, someone, like I said, you could have just Jeff Bezos who, yes, he has money, but all these different aspects of like his characteristics, his personality, his soul essence are lacking in other departments where it needs work. Whereas, on the other end of the spectrum, maybe you have a homeless person, $0 in their bank account, but they like everyone loves them. Everyone says hi to them on the street because they're just so happy. And like, so yeah, it's kind of, I like to think about things from that higher level. The human experience here is, I would say a lot of people are starting to learn that higher level of perspective where I'm not a human. Once you relinquish the identity of being a human, because that's what it's all about. Are you a human that is going through this grief? If you're contracted to go through that experience, then yes, you are choosing that. But when you start really thinking about this and expanding your conscious spiritual journey, you are thinking about these things, then you start to look at it from a higher perspective. Because in Buddhism teaches you to see what you're identifying with, to see what you are. Keep asking the question, am I a project manager working in this job? Am I a 45-year-old man? Am I this child that has a disease? Well, maybe that might be for a time being. It might serve a purpose for you to identify with that. But at the end of the day, at the end of that life, that's not who you are, because you continue on after age 45, after project management, after being a child. That's not you. So keep asking that question, who you are. Ask questions about everything, because the questioner opens themselves up to whatever best serves them, right? If you keep asking questions about who you are, you're going to keep, okay, well, so if I'm a human, okay, clearly I'm not a male human because I continue after I die, after the male human passes away. So that's not me. Okay, so I'm a soul that incarnates in these experiences. Well, am I really? Because I can keep going and keep questioning, what is the one thing that I am? And that's that phrase, I am, is one of the most popular phrases that you can kind of get to. My dad
always says that when he meditates.
I am.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the only thing that you are is I am. I am whatever I choose to be.
I always assume, I haven't had to deal with grief since we've been on this journey of just understanding this stuff more. But I'm assuming that knowing what we know, it's going to make my grief process much easier to manage. Now, you just lost your grandma, which I'm so sorry about, but how have you felt in processing that?
I have been my entire life. She was so close to me. Her name is Joan, and So even as a very young kid, I remember being like 4 or 5 years old. She would babysit me because my mom worked a day job. So she would like play little street hockey with me in the driveway and stuff as I was a young kid, and take me out to KB Toys and all this awesome stuff. So I've always had a very, very strong connection with her. I could like not speak to her in a month and just pick up exactly where we were. So
Love that.
before I went on the spiritual journey, I lost my dad's dad, my pop-up. His name is also Bill. That one was very difficult for me. That was before I had this greater spiritual conscious understanding, where my human mind kind of recognized that, yes, this is the way that things are. And I wasn't as close with him as I was to my Nana. But that losing him was harder than losing her, which is kind of backwards. But the difference is, I knew all of these spiritual things, and it's my essence, it's my being. Like, it's not just things that I can recite off the top of my head and is kind of cerebral. It's my entire, like, I know it's in my entire being. So when I lost my Nana, it was the beginning of June. Of course it was very emotional because she was 94. And so, she was going downhill, and it was kind of emotional because I was starting to, start my process of moving down to North Carolina and everything. So it was difficult to say those goodbyes because I knew once I started to move down here and, things would probably be happening to her, and they did. And she was in the hospital for a month with pneumonia, but the moment she passed, because I had that awareness, and I wasn't making this up, I felt like I actually did help her along the passing process because she was in the hospital for a long period of time. She needed a little bit of help to be pushed over that edge. There are people out there that are spiritually gifted that help with that process, which we actually had someone help. And then I also helped. We both, she did it like a Thursday and I did it on the Friday. And then by Saturday morning, she was gone.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy.
Okay, so your whole family is open to this stuff.
Yeah. My mom is the awesome. Most open. But we have been talking about this for a little while now. So even though the stories sound a little crazy sometimes to some people, it's that's what they get.
But it's so cool that your family was so open to that kind of stuff, and because you said your Nana's one of your spirit guides now, right? Mm-hmm. How long after she transitioned? How long until you reconnected?
Well, it was pretty immediate. So the moment after, so for example, if you pass at say 6 a.m. on Sunday morning, it's the human spirit tends to linger around in a very physical, energetic form. So there are different planes to existence, right? When you hear about someone crossing over to the other side, that's typically about 3 to 4 days. It varies. It's unique from person to person, but they're literally going through that the gateway to heaven, right? They transition from identifying as a human, being in a sort of soul, more energetic physical form, to, now we're transitioning over to the other side of that reality and dimension of light. So it's no longer being here on the earth. It's now we're in that other dimension. So that process typically takes, it begins. So they're in the earthly realms as a spirit for generally, like I said, about 3, it could go as far as 7 days, but at that point, they're kind of itching to get over and to cross over, because when you cross over, you do the life review and you basically look at your entire life. It's almost like the movie screen, the projector. It's showing everything that happened, and you relive your entire life, and you say, well, I did this really great. That's awesome. I got to work on this a little bit for the next time. You review everything. And then that process, again, varies from person to person. I've seen it take a week sometimes. Like, they're very, very quick. And sometimes it takes 6 months. It varies. So for my Nana, it was, because she passed away and I immediately felt her more physical presence. The way that I describe it, it's like someone standing behind you. It's very like in the room. But when they cross over, it's more ethereal, and it's up here instead, like above your head.
Okay.
So
interesting.
Yeah. But I think for her, it took, it wasn't very long at all. I think it was only like 3-4 weeks or something. And then my mom goes to readings too. So she started coming to my mom kind of right away.
And then you said that some people who, when you said they linger around for like maybe 1,000 years or something, is that in that secondary like light form? And then like what happens after that? Or is that a big universal secret?
Well, you're asking, you said 1,000 years, which is, I was mentioning that before with spirit guides. Like it's been generally a couple thousand years since they've incarnated, but the only when you get to that point of being a spirit guide, you have already crossed over. You've done whatever life review. You're kind of baked into that world. Like you're living in that world. You're like doing whatever you need to do to keep learning and growing and having these fun experiences and this and that, living your spiritual life. So it's not like it's not a linear process. Like, okay, I'm gonna pass away and then a week later I'm gonna cross over, and then it varies from person to person. Like,
yeah, I mean, we've heard that time doesn't work quite that way over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just always wonder sometimes when I listen to shows that have psychics that are like clairvoyant. No one ever sees a caveman ghost. It's always like someone from like a couple last century tops.
Well, so here's the thing though. The only time that you would see someone that looks like a caveman is if that's the life that they're choosing to identify as, because spirits, they're not human forms. It's almost like a human body as a costume that we're choosing to wear. So my Nana, even though she passed in 94, she always shows to me as like late 30s, early 40s. I have a picture of her in my living room, but she chooses to present as that because that's the time where she enjoyed the life the most. She enjoyed the way she looked. So you have like spirit guides, going back to that, they choose to show as like, maybe they're wearing some old timey clothes, like maybe they're wearing a monk outfit or something, but it's a very ethereal quality, and it's almost like that's the image that they're choosing, even though they might have lived thousands, tens of thousands of lives or whatever. That's just what most of the time is what you're most familiar with. So like maybe Frank, for example, your grandmother or someone, maybe you knew them as like, you had this vivid memory when you were 5 years old and you can tell me exactly where every wrinkle was on her face, what each freckle looked like. That's how she's going to present to you because you're most familiar with that image. You recognize that the most. Whereas someone else, someone else's grandmother might show to them as a completely different other age. And does that make sense?
Yeah. I've kind of heard that, like they choose their clothing and their look, and if someone has a session with you, like what does that look like?
They are so different. I mean, there are sessions where it's so heavy. Okay, so I'll just tell you the general layout of my most popular, the one that I see the most kind of benefit from is something that I call Angel Advisor. So that's a 1.5 hour session. And that's meant to, okay, you're open to working on something. Doesn't matter what it is. You could even just book a session. Like I have people that said like, I don't know why, but I just felt like I need to book an Angel Advisor session with you. And it's like the most astounding session we have. I have some students, very young people, like 18, 19 years old, and they're masters. They don't even realize it yet. So like some of those sessions, I just, they're open to learning about all of the spiritual world, and that's what they're booking the session for, even though they didn't realize it. And it's like, yes, I just want to hear everything. And so I've done that before. I've done, like I mentioned earlier, someone with the alcohol addiction, I helped. But again, like if it's a medical thing, or if it's something that is in a traditional medical system, or it's like psychological mental system, there is no replacement for that. I want to be very, very clear. But if you do feel led to, if you're already in a program like that, to enhance, or if you wanted to just give it a try for something that you're working on in a spiritual sense, that's kind of what I help with. So
you kind of follow like what that person's higher self is kind of guiding you to tell them, or what angels are telling you to tell them. Again, so I work for the best and highest good. What that means to the human mind is, I don't know. It's whatever happens when we sit down, we say our opening prayer. And the first thing that I do is I feel their energy.
And I said earlier that one of my most prominent senses is feeling in the body, feeling the energies. So when I first tap into someone, I might feel something in my gut. It's just like this twisting and like, okay, what's going on here? And it's very funny sometimes how they show that to me. That's generally the jumping off point, is what I feel in their field, either in my body or just kind of what I'm picking up. And then the conversation opens up from there. Like, even if they don't know what they want to talk about specifically, we uncover it during the first generally 20 minutes of talking through and what I'm intuiting. And then from there, like most of the time they do have questions, they do have things that we want to work on. And 99% of the time that's aligned with what they need to work on for the best and highest good, because it's already kind of in their awareness.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then from there, it's like whatever we need to work on. Again, I don't limit myself. I've walked people through meditations before. I've walked them through like placing their hands on different positions on their body to work through these different breathing rituals and playing with energy and the light. I've channeled things for them. Some past loved ones. It's like I do whatever spirit wants me to do. I open myself up to anything.
With that said, is there, while you've been on the phone with us, is there anything, I don't want to take advantage of your abilities, but is there anything that you've picked up on that either Lauren or I should know about? Or have you been, do you have one of the on and off switches?
I do.
That everyone,
I do.
That's nice.
Because
it is off.
Yeah. It's a very conscious switch on for me. Like I need to sit down and I have to just put my will out. Like I am going to connect with you. Most of the time it's off because that's the way I like it. I don't want to be constantly bombarded with other people's energies and have my day-to-day affected by it, because that's not the way I want to live. So
that's exhausting.
That's tough. That's tough.
And so for me, like when someone books a session with me, I sit down with them, I get in the space, I light a white candle to represent the divine, the light and love. I clear my space with sage and everything, just really make it a ritual, make it a ceremony for myself. And like all of that, I don't even have to do that. I can use my abilities. It's just kind of, it's the little bit of oil that helps the process, that reduces the friction. So when I'm like doing a podcast with someone, or like doing something like this, I should say, I'm focused more on spirits that I'm working with right now. And just like, that's all that my TV is tuned to, like my radio. I'm only tuned into what they want to bring across, what they're saying. So,
got it.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't have any wisdom for you guys specifically.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Do you have any advice for people who have those abilities that don't have an off switch, and how to manage?
Your will and intention is the most powerful tool at your disposal. And I like to think of it as percentage points. Like if you can get as close to 100% of channeling your will into whatever, then you could literally move mountains. The greater and closer you get to 100%, it's the more powerful you can. Most people don't have that much will and intention with most things in their life. Like most people generally go throughout their day to day, kind of, I don't want to generalize and make it sound bad. I really hope that's not coming across like that. But most people, it takes a lot of energy to do that, is what I'm saying. So we kind of just generally live our life, go about the things. So for someone that wants to sort of, I'm not going to say close off and shut the door, but like wants to control how that comes to them, create rules and methods with your spirit team. Because like I said, we all have spirit teams. Sit down, shut out everything around you. Like turn off your phone, turn off your computer, turn off the lights, like make it as much, as close to that 100% of your will as you can. And then make that rule. Tell them, okay, spirit, and this is where the specifics come into, because spirit doesn't speak in English. They don't speak in Spanish, Italian, anything. They speak in feelings and energies. So you could even just visualize or feel what you're trying to accomplish. That's what manifesting, like the law of attraction, they teach you to like imagine you already have what you want, right? Get to be in that energy. So again, the closest you can get to 100% of your will to create some sort of rule, Or it can even be like a ritualistic thing. Like every morning you wake up and you're like, okay, I'm going to say a quick prayer. Like, thank you, Spirit, for only allowing beings of light and love to be around me for the best and highest good. Something as simple as that. You say every morning and like you focus on it. It doesn't, if you're doing it regularly, it doesn't have to be 100% of your will and intention. I'd say if we wanted to put a number on it, maybe 50 to 70% is really pretty good. Like, put your phone on do not disturb, leave it on the nightstand, and maybe like you have a little altar that you stand in front of every morning and you say, okay, these are my rules, and thank you, Spirit, for bringing everything to me that serves my best and highest good. Something like that.
Focus. I like it.
Yeah. But yeah,
and boundaries.
Focus, will, and intention, and creating the rules, because the highest rule of all of individual souls is free will. No one can go against your free will, really. It is like we talked about earlier. It's very rare that someone intends to go directly against your free will, because that is not, stuff will not end up well. Like there will be many things that happen to that person. But anyway, I'm getting off track.
No, I like that. That there's some comfort to that, because they're breaking the rules and
the universal laws.
It's all easier. It's all easier if we follow those laws. Okay. That's good. I'm going to pass that on to our niece specifically because, I think that's helpful. We're not sure that she has an off switch, so she's struggling with that a little bit.
So, I mean, specifically for something like that, what I would say or recommend is, so that's kind of the general guideline, is use your will and intention to create rules. One of those rules might be, thank you, Spirit, for only bringing me the feelings and sensations that serve my best and highest good, or the spiritual gifts and abilities that serve my best and highest good, or thank you, Spirit, for closing me, for creating boundaries around me where only light and love can pass through for this day and every day.
Well, so where can people find you and receive your wonderful services?
Well, thank you. My main website, where you can find all of my social medias, my YouTube channel where I post my podcast, my Spotify, everything is linked from my main website, yourdivinity.org, yourdivinity.org. My contact page is on there as well. You could book sessions, read about me. I have a really lengthy about me section that I put a lot of effort into. And I
read the whole thing, by the way, and it was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
The engine work, the cars you've redone, that's amazing.
Oh yeah, 1965 Ford Fairlane, 59 AMC Rambler, a couple motorcycles. I'm a gearhead.
Oh my gosh.
So cool, so cool.
Yeah,
I don't know any of that stuff, so I like that.
We could talk about music though. But yeah, everything is linked on there. I think if you're on mobile, you have to hit the little menu icon on the top left, and then all my social media links are like icons on the bottom.
Dude, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And,
thank you
this
guys.
has been awesome.
Thank you guys for having me on here. It was a pleasure. You guys are awesome people. My mom and I have already followed you on Spotify, so we're getting the notifications, and it was great. I would love to be back on. I would love to stay in touch with you guys.
Same.
And
cool. Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Visit www.clairvoyaging.com for show notes, merch, or just to say hi. If you'd like to support our journey, visit www.buymeacoffee.com/clairvoyaging. This has been a production of Wayfeather Media.